I hope you can hear me okay. I think, yes, you are all automatically muted. Just the speakers have their mics on, I believe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this online webinar titled Creative Quran Teaching. I'm just waiting to see if anybody is responding again to say that they can hear me before I go any further. If you could just put a 1 in the chat. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so my name is Sabira Rashid-Juma, and I am one of the presenters for tonight's online seminar. I have joining with me Najma Dhala-Datoo, and we're both really excited to share our experiences with you of how we have tried to connect with the Holy Quran and try to bring the Quran to life in our homes and in our classrooms. I am the mom of 3 kids, and I'm passionate about bringing the Quran into our home, not just the traditional style of recitation, but also trying to bring it in on a more deeper level with meaning. Najma is also the mom of 3 kids, and she's got a similar passion to try and bring the Quran alive into her home. As well, she is a Quran teacher for many people around the world, as she has a online Quran teaching program. She teaches for the Academy in their Quran appreciation classes for children, as well as she hosts a lot of other programs and wears lots of different hats as she tries to bring the Quran into our lives here in Toronto in many different ways. So we're both looking forward to sharing some tips and techniques with you that we've come across during our journey. And we also look forward to learning and hearing from you. So please feel free to use the chat box and let this be an interactive, engaging webinar, inshallah. So I think the timing of this webinar is really so perfect. I mean, we had planned this months ago, thinking that it would be held just before Ramadan and it would be a really good time. But now that we're all home during this time, I think it's even more fitting that we're holding this seminar right now, with many of us trying to find ways to connect to Allah and deepen our faith and our understanding of the Holy Quran. So I hope that you'll be able to find something useful during this presentation that speaks to you and that can help you along in your journey. I'm going to pass it on to Najma now, who's going to start us off. Najma?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for joining us. As Sabira mentioned, we are here to share with you some tips that we use in responding to the Quran that have worked for us, and we hope to learn some things from you as well. So please do share as we go along. To begin with, Allah mentions in the Quran in Surah Qamar, it's a very famous verse that's up here on the slide. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And we have certainly made the Quran easy for remembrance, but is there anyone who will mind? And he repeats it 4 times in the same surah. Now, when we look at a challenge posed like that, it almost becomes mandatory to respond. And notice how Allah uses the word yassarna. We have made it easy, or Kulikarai translates it as simple. That is very hope-giving that really anyone can do it. Interacting with the Quran is for everyone, and therefore it can be done in a variety of fun and creative ways. Ways that appeal to us personally, and this is not limited to just reciting the Quran as we did traditionally. Then we have this beautiful hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salam that many of you may have heard before, where he says, "The house in which the Quran is recited and Allah the Noble and Grand is remembered will receive numerous divine blessings. The angels will be present and the Satans will be distanced from there. In addition, that house will shimmer for the people of the sky, just like the stars shimmer for the people on the earth." It's a beautiful hadith. So, it's like when we look up at the sky, we see the stars. Now, if the Quran is a big part of our homes, then when they look down, it's as though they can see stars. So, what we're trying to achieve here today through this course is learn some techniques to decorate our homes with the presence of the Quran. Trying to connect to it in numerous ways that makes it more exciting. Remember, the more enthusiastic and passionate we are about it, then inshallah our homes will emit colorful lights for the people in the sky. I'll hand it back to Sabira to start sharing some of the ways in which we can make the Quran alive in our homes. Now, these are just some of the ways, not all. We're sure there's so many more. And like I said, if you have any ideas as we go along, feel free to share. You can write on the chat box. So, Sabira?
Okay, thank you. And feel free to put questions into the chat box as well if you have anything as we go along. If we're able to answer them as we go along, we will try to. Otherwise, we will have some question and answer time at the end. So the first idea that we wanted to share with you is the idea of using Quran tabs. So the picture on your screen has divided the Quran based on the surah names, and it's used a picture version of each surah. So each picture represents the translation of the surah name. So you can see Surah Baqarah there, the little cow is there, and then Ali Imran's got the little family. And this is a really nice way to just, a good place to start, I would say, if you want to try and bring your physical Quran to life and like beautify it that way, because I think when you start to do that, it becomes really exciting to pick up your Quran. You start to, first of all, gain this affinity towards your Quran, like this relationship that you have with this book, and it makes it all the like you feel more like coming to it. And it tabbing your Quran this way really makes it easy for you to flip back and forth between ayats. It helps you to get familiar with the surah names and their meanings. I see in the chat box somebody's asking how you can get them. We're actually going to have some links at the end of our presentation, and there's a website there that you can refer to and download a file that has all these pictures there, and you can go ahead and try and use that for yourself. It's really fun to be able to sit down and do this alongside with other family members or other friends. It can be an activity that you sit down and do and make an evening out of it. And if you're interested in doing this particular style of the tabbing, I recommend getting 2-inch Post-it tabs. And what I've done previously with these is each Post-it tab that's 2 inches long. If you cut it into 3 sections, 3 equal sections, it works out to a really good size for the size of the picture that's provided. And you take that little rectangle. Oh, you can't see the screen. Does everyone have the same problem that you can't see the picture? Okay. Okay, so for those of you who are having trouble seeing the screen, perhaps you'll be able to get these slides later on, and maybe when you're not signed into the webinar, you'll be able to see them better. We'll figure out something later if you need to if you need help to see that. Okay, so yeah, you just take the little square cutout, you put it on the colored section of your tab, put a little piece of clear tape over it, and then you start to mark it in your Quran on the starting page of the surah and stagger the stickers as you go. So Surah Fatiha would be right at the very top, Surah Baqarah. When you put it on the page for Surah Baqarah, you're going to line it like slightly lower, and then Surah Al Imran a little lower, so that when you look at the pages afterwards, they're all clearly visible for you, so you can flip to them easily. Someone's suggesting to use a computer screen. So if you are on a phone, perhaps it would be hard to see. So if you can try using a computer, that would be great. Yeah, so there's different ways to tab your Quran. This is one idea, by doing it by surah names. Other ideas are trying to tab by theme. There is a file that somebody has created of different themes to go by. And I think that one goes by, for example, using red color for Ya Ayyuhan Nas ayats, warning ayats. And then they have yellow for Quranic du'as, etc. And if you're interested in that file, if you're interested in tabbing your Quran by theme in that way and want to have a look at that, please let one of us know and we can help you get that file. Alternatively, you can start tabbing by just tabbing some of your favorite ayat. Anything that you do to start interacting with your Quran and connecting it in this way is a really good start. Okay. So next, we're going to be talking about Quran journaling. Quran journaling is the idea of connecting with your Quran by some sort of documentation, I would say. There's so many different ways to try and connect with your Quran. And this is just one of the ideas that we are presenting. I think as a society, we're really used to taking in a lot of information. Like we're consumers of information. We listen to a lot of lectures. We listen to a lot of things coming at us. And while this is so fabulous, and I think it's so great that we do this as a community, I think it's another step in the journey to start finding a way to output kind of all the stuff that we're taking in. And I think it settles differently when we start to find a way to express what it is that we've learned. So in whichever way we decide to do this, I think it takes us just another level further, because we have to understand it to be able to create something out from it or write about it. So the idea that you have here on your screen is actually working directly in your Quran. And this is a visual representation of an ayat. So the ayat here is kalimatan tayyibatan kashajaratin tayyiba. A good word is like a good tree. So you decide, like when you're trying to decide what to draw for a particular ayat, you really have to think about the ayat. You have to think about what it means, what the message is. And so you're starting to contemplate about verses of the Quran. It's also really therapeutic. It can be really therapeutic to be coloring and drawing and doing this in your Quran. And as you're working on a particular ayat, you have further time to reflect about it. And I find that once you spend so much time with an ayat, like in any capacity, you really end up having a relationship with that ayat. That ayat really starts meaning something to you. You have a particular relationship with it, and you start to like hear about it in different ways. Like if you are focused on, for example, if you've worked on this ayat with the tree, you'll start to hear people talk about different ways that maybe an ayat that links to the way the Prophet and Imam Ali are related to a tree and its roots. And I think it's really a fun way to interact with the Quran. It's a great family kind of activity. Anyone of any age is able to start doing this kind of work. So it's a really nice option. What are some steps? You can choose any Quran to do this in. The Quran on your screen is Ali Kuli Qurai's version. It's got really nice translation. It goes phrase by phrase. It also, the paper quality is really good for this type of work. But you can do this definitely in any other Quran. So don't feel like you must have this particular version to be able to start this. I like to first make a sketch of whatever it is that I want to draw. So I just use a pencil and eraser and kind of draw out first what it is that I'm planning to draw. And then when I'm happy with it, then I start using pencil crayons. And I also like using twistable, Crayola twistable colored pencils. Anything that's really kind of a little softer. If you start using markers and stuff, it starts to bleed through the pages unless you have very thick paper. But I find that pencil crayons or something soft works really well. Some ideas are to look for other inspiration and other ideas of what other people have done. If you go on Pinterest and search Bible journaling, there are so many people who journal in their Bible, and they do really quite extravagant type things with their Bibles. They've got special Bibles where they buy a 2-inch margin, and their papers are different quality and stuff. So, I mean, you can take a lot of ideas from them and then start to think about how you want to use it in your Quran. If there's any questions as we go along, please feel free. Oh, the version of the Quran is Ali Kulli Qurai. Najma, you want to take over?
Okay, so we can really take our everyday special gifts and mementos and connect it back to the Quran as well. Like Sabira said, there's so much that we can do with it. And if we want to personalize it for ourselves and have a relationship with those verses, this is another technique. For instance, you can see on the picture a picture of a maple leaf. My son gave me this beautiful maple leaf he had picked up, and it was done with so much love. I instantly thought I would store it in my Quran. So instead of just putting it like a normal bookmark, I opened up to Surah Hajj where it says, and grows every kind of delightful kind of plant. And I highlighted that phrase. Now, I know you will argue, some of you might argue that a fall leaf in a spring type of ayah, because if you were to read the entire ayah, it says that when Allah sends down water upon the land and then it stirs and swells and grows every kind of delightful plant. But if we were to make a connection, we can also see that Allah gives life after death. He revives. And so even when our spirits are low sometimes, He will boost us up. So right there, there's so many connections there that we're making within the Quran. I don't mean to be a spoiler, but wait till you see what Sabira would do with something like this. But before that, the other picture you see is of a bookmark that my children made for Mother's Day, and it reminded me actually of my mother and how the verse in Surah Luqman talks about mothers bearing their children in weakness upon weakness. And then it talks about gratitude towards parents in the same verse. So I took some phrases from that verse and personalized my bookmark, as you can see. And then I placed it against Surah Luqman. You can also take cutouts of quotes, a hadith that you like, and place them in relevant places in the Quran. For example, I found this quote about grace. There was a really nice quote and it had a nice picture. So I did a cutout and I put it with the famous verse, Hada min fadli Rabbi. So there's so much that you can do with your little gifts and mementos and put them in the Quran to have a connection and create more meaning for yourselves. Another creative way of bringing out messages from the Quran is by using a simple Bristol board. This is mainly useful when a group of people get together. Now, we tried this last year in Mahi Ramadan when we presented a workshop for older women. Many of them had never tried these types of techniques, so there was a bit of apprehension. But the case study we gave them was about the story of the people of the garden from Surah Qalam, which is one of my favorite stories, by the way. The story was discussed along with the lessons, and then we just put everyone in groups and we gave them boards and markers. And it was amazing how they used different talents from their group to put together a masterpiece. Unfortunately, we could not locate a picture from that particular event. But what you see in front of you here is a group of people have just, put like lessons perhaps that they learned from this hadith or from verse of the Quran, and they've put it on each step. So really, when people get together and everybody starts to put in their thoughts, it's a really nice way of bringing the messages of the Quran and having them in such a way that you're able to retain the message. We're always told, right, when you write something down or you draw something, it really stays with you. So this is another good technique. This can be done even within families. So say, for example, in a family circle, everybody's sitting together and pondering over like a passage in the Quran. And you could have a Bristol board and everybody's just trying to put, like, a person who's good at writing can just put a little write-up. If you have someone in the family who's an artist, can start drawing some pictures about it. And perhaps this Mahi Ramadan, when people are just, at home, and this could be one of a family activity that we could engage in, inshallah. Sabra?
I think we skipped a slide. I'm just going to go back. Oh. Here. Okay. So as I was saying before, Quran journaling directly into your Quran, we don't have a lot of space in many of the Quran versions we have. So to deal with that problem, it's nice to be able to work in a separate book so that you have more space to work and reflect about a particular ayat. You have tons of space to add other notes. The space is really unlimited, and you can go much, much deeper into the study of a particular ayat, to a particular passage, theme, anything you choose. So there's so many different ways to do this, but just the idea of having a separate book is another way to journal. You get to decide what to include in it. Are you going to just be including text? Are you going to be doing a lot of write-up? Do you want to include pictures? Do you want to draw? Do you want to print and cut out and put things in? So if you don't feel like you're much of an artist and you don't want to draw, it's nice to be able to just print some pictures. And as you study the ayats, there's so much that you can do once you pick an ayat. So on this particular example, you can see I've taken the word yasarna from the ayat and looked up what it means further, because when we have a translation from the Arabic, many of us who don't have Arabic as our language, we fail to really understand the depth of the Quran. And so when you start to look up root words and you get a bigger picture of what that word is trying to convey, because our English translation doesn't give it justice. So once you start with that, you start to understand the ayat on a deeper level. You're able to then use different databases and apps to try and search for that same root word that's found in other places in the Quran. And we're going to have an example of cross-referencing later on. But you can start to link it to other ayats and then start recording what are the other ayats that you found that link. And what does it mean? And it just becomes this really beautiful study that you can take in any different direction that you'd like. You can link it to different hadiths, to different du'as, to something you heard in a lecture, to a name of Allah. You can try and relate to that ayat and understand what lesson it's giving to you. Try and have a conversation with Allah through that ayat. What is Allah trying to tell you? How are you responding? How do you feel when you read this ayat? And it's so wonderful to then be able to turn back to this documented journey of your journey with the Quran, because like, much time later, after you look back at it, sometimes you'll be surprised at what it was that you were thinking and what it meant, because every time you look at ayat, sometimes they unfold a different layer. And I recommend that as you're studying something, to leave some space after you feel like you've done a certain section and you're ready to move on. Leave a couple of pages, or leave 1 or 2 pages, so that you can come back and add still notes. So what else did I want to say? Okay, so I would recommend buying a really good quality book to use this in, something that is going to hold up, because you want to choose something that's really special, because this is something that is going to be very near and dear to your heart once you start working on it. And then use whatever supplies you want, because there's no restrictions here. If you're a painter, paint in it. Here I've used lots of different colored pens just to make it look visually appealing, because that's something that's important to me. The pictures that I usually like to use, I do a Google search for whatever it is that I want to search for, and then I always add clip art to the end of it. And those are the types of images that you see here. For example, the date palm tree that you see here. If I just searched a date palm tree, I would have gotten a really realistic picture of a date palm tree. But if I put in the word clip art after it, then I get something that's more, I don't know, cartoony or something. And for me, that's what I like. So if that's helpful to you, please feel free to use that. Yeah, again, you can take this in any different direction that you like. The sky's the limit. So this is just one starting point. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. The idea is the same here as what we've kind of been discussing, to just try and dig into an ayat a little bit further. This is a scrapbooking style. If you're passionate in it and it's like one of your hobbies to scrapbook, this is a fun way to do that also. So this is the same ayat that we did before, of a good word is like a good tree, and it's done in a scrapbook style.
So another technique is a group study. Quran tells us وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, and help one another in righteousness and God consciousness. Now, working together as a group is always motivating, and there's some form of accountability as well. This is not always possible in person, and what better time than now to realize the potential of coming together as a community virtually, mashallah. So you could have WhatsApp groups where everyone is reading and reflecting upon the same verses of the Quran. Reviving the Quran is an example of a WhatsApp group where questions for reflection are posted every Monday, and members of the group have that week to read and reflect on the passage. So you could start up your own WhatsApp groups within your friend circle, or within your own extended family, and this way everyone is kind of keeping check on each other and reading and having a discussion. It's nice when the group is smaller, because people are more open to discussing with each other. So that's another idea of bringing Quran alive to your lives. How can we join the group Reviving the Quran? Okay, so we have our contacts in the end. Maybe you can contact us, email us, and we will give you more details for that. There is a message: if we want to know more detail on the ayah for Quran journaling, which resources do you suggest to refer to? So we will be giving some links and some techniques to do cross-referencing for the verses. And in terms of the artistic way of doing it, I think Sabira, you should be able to help with that. for the journaling? Sabira?
Is there a specific question about the?
So it says if we want to know more detail on the ayah for Quran journaling, which resources do you suggest to refer to?
I think some of our links at the end might answer that, and then if there's still further questions, maybe we can take it then.
Okay, sounds good. Will you be able to get these slides so you can see them clearer? Yes, inshallah, these will be available on the Academy's website for you to access them later. I'm just checking if there's any more questions. There's a question, Sabira, what did you use in the background? I'm guessing this is for the scrapbook.
Okay, so there's scrapbooking paper that you can actually buy from, if you live in Toronto area, the dollar store near Costco in Richmond Hall has some nice scrapbooking paper. Michael's carries scrapbooking paper. That was a sheet from Scrapbook, specific for scrapbooking.
Okay. Are there any more questions, or can we continue? I think we can go on. Okay. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was memorization. Now, hifz of the Quran is highly, highly recommended in Islam. There are so many ahadith and benefits highlighted, which we don't wish to go over because that is a topic on its own. The reason why we have connected it to a creative way of interacting with the Quran is that it helps to become a part of us. Now, many people have this fear that they cannot retain a whole surah, for instance. So it's okay to start slow. The idea is to be able to carry as many verses of the Quran within us and implementing those to our circumstances. Having the Quran in our heart means we become bearers of its teachings as well. So, as the hadith mentions, certainly he who has nothing of the Holy Quran within his heart is like a house in ruin, right? It's a very famous hadith by the Holy Prophet. Now, remember, we said we are making our homes those that shimmer for the people of the heavens. So, let us not make our hearts like a ruined home. It starts from within and then it spreads to our surrounding. So, like I said right in the beginning, that if we're passionate about it, if we're enthusiastic about it, then we will be able to connect with it in a much better way, and inshallah make our houses those that will shimmer for the people of the sky. So Sabira will now start sharing some of the techniques of making the process of memorization simple.
Okay, so on your screen here, there are some Quran cards on the right side. These are really kind of a fun way, especially if you're going to be trying to memorize with your kids. They're just short verses that are even just a part of an ayat that can be really used in everyday conversation. There are ayats that are simple to memorize and then also applicable in so many different areas in regular everyday life. So we use these Quran cards to first memorize the ayats, and then we continue using the cards to try and practice keeping up that memorization by playing different games with them, and that just helps to ensure that we don't forget whatever it is that we've learned. And there's the visual on one side, and then on the other side is the Arabic. You can print this in either way, though. You don't have to do it with double-sided. Again, we have a link at the end of the presentation that takes you to a website where you can download and print these cards for yourself. The other idea is whatever ayat you're trying to memorize, to keep it in easy to see places, so that as you're memorizing it, if you're trying to practice and you've forgotten a word, then you're able to quickly check whatever it is that you've forgotten. So the idea here is just there's a paper under a clear tablecloth on the table. And so every time you sit down to eat, for example, you're able to quickly check in and check how you're doing with the memorization of the ayat that you're trying to work on, and able to pick up wherever you've forgotten. So, I mean, that's just one idea. You can do this in any different way. You can keep these Quran cards in your purse, in your wallet, at your side table. You can put things into your musalla, into your prayer mat, so that every time you're stopping for salat, you're able to revise and check that you've memorized, that you've got it. Other ideas are, because we all have our phone with us all the time, having images on your phone, or having ayats listed in your notes section so that you're able to check it at any time. Because I find that many times you want to memorize and you're practicing what you've started to memorize, and then you can't remember the next word. And so if you have it easily accessible, it makes it that much easier. And I just want to say, like, see how your world changes once you start memorizing like a few ayats that you can really just roll off your tongue as you're speaking in everyday conversation. It's really fun. It's really fulfilling. It really helps you reflect about how that ayat relates in your life, and where you might be missing out on doing something that you're supposed to do. And I hope it's something that, if you haven't already taken up, that you're willing to try, because I think anybody can do it. Najma?
Thank you, Sabira. So another way to do it, like to help with the memorization, is by having a verse of the week displayed on the board at home. And if you have young children especially, this can be done based on the message that you want to emphasize to them. And it does not have to be the entire verse. It can be just a part of the verse also. So like you can see in the picture, one of them is about night being for rest and sleep. I put this up during the winter break just to emphasize the importance of not staying up too late at night. But here's a word of caution. Sometimes the children use these verses to their advantage, although it's so heartwarming to see that they use the words of Allah to communicate. Sabra, you want to share what your children like to tell you often?
As we were prepping for this, I was telling Najma that, my 5-year-old will come and tell me, "Lima taquluna ma la taf'alun," Mommy, like, do not say that which you do not do. So if I'm asking her to change out of her pajamas and I still got my pajamas on, that's not going to work. So it's funny, and it's also amazing and wonderful at the same time, because our kids are there to tell us really what we need to work on. And so it's wonderful that you have that reflection back. And Najma, you want to share what you're doing?
Yeah, so my boy's favorite one when I get upset is the one on restraining anger. They'll say, "Calm down, mama, والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس." So yes, it does come back to us, but again, it's heartwarming. And like Sabra said, it feels really good when we start doing these, when we start taking these little steps, and it becomes a part of your conversations at home. Alhamdulillah, it's very fulfilling. Sabra will share one more technique, I think, for memorization. And then move on. Go ahead, Sabra.
Okay. This is actually something that was sent to us by somebody else who studies and tries to memorize the Quran in this way. They have a picture for every few words, and then that helps them to sequence in their mind which ayat what comes after what. Because when you have a visual representation like that, your mind picks it up differently. I think there's so many different ways to do this visually. Like, it doesn't have to be pictures like this, but if you're trying to memorize even like larger sections of the Quran, using the same text is also really much easier to use, because your mind puts it in, like your mind does this visual picture kind of where it is on the page. And actually the Uthmani script Qurans always end an ayat right away at the end of each page. So the way your mind works as it looks at those ayats. So either a technique like this, connecting with different pictures to each portion of the surah that you're trying to memorize, or even just using a particular Quran to keep looking at is another idea when you're trying to memorize larger portions. Did you want to add anything to that, Najma, to the slide?
No, I think you explained it well, Sabira. And again, you can use pictures that will help you remember, right? So this is just a sample that was given to us, but you could use pictures that will help you remember when you're memorizing, and I think that will be helpful as well. There's a question here, how does one start if you're a complete beginner? So I believe the question is about complete beginner in terms of memorizing verses of the Quran. So again, like I said, you can start slow, like you can start small. So maybe set smaller goals for yourself. So if you feel like a full surah is going to be really overwhelming, then you can start with phrases from the Quran. I know the Academy has a very good resource for the month of Ramadan, where for 30 days, each day you try to memorize a short verse. And these verses are not even the entire verse, they're just portions of a verse. So you could pick things that relate to you at the present moment. So for example, if you're feeling low, right? So you're trying to look for something in the Quran that's going to make you feel better, and you take a phrase from that. One of the things that comes to mind to me all the time is La tahzan inna Allaha ma'ana, right? And this is in Surah Tawbah, verse number 40. Now, what I like to do is I will, whenever the clock reads 9:40, I will recite that phrase from that verse, and it means, do not grieve, Allah is with you, right? It's very heartwarming because it's something that it's a reminder, right? And it's a reminder that's in His words, right? It's Allah talking to you, and you're actually quoting Him, and you're reminding yourself. So this is one example, and there's so many examples like that. So I would suggest you start small, start with things that you can relate to, that connect to you and speak to you directly, and you will notice that it will automatically come to you and it will stay with you. I hope that was helpful. Okay, let's quickly move on. So the next thing we were going to talk about was some teaching ideas. So if you're one who's a Quran teacher, you're teaching in a classroom setting, or even if you're trying to teach it to your children at home or your family members, one of the ways to captivate the attention is through experiments. I still remember the look on my students' faces a few years ago when they saw a science experiment being conducted in a Quran class. When we were trying to understand the concept of weak versus strong faith, we used the tea bag experiment. Yes, I took a thermos of hot water and I took some tea bags to class. Children love experiments. It really, catches their attention, and then you slide in the verse of the Quran. Now, mind you, this experiment is a good reminder for myself as an adult too, when I'm drinking my light versus strong tea. So again, bringing your day-to-day experiences in the light of the Quran is very helpful. Another great connection comes through storytelling. Now, the Quran itself has numerous interesting stories, but we can even use regular stories and then we can look at the moral and connect it to a verse in the Quran. And we will, inshallah, go over how to look for these verses in the Quran. Sabira, you want to continue?
Just some other points to mention. Trying to link any ayats to events that happen in your life. So you've shown it through the example of the experiments and the stories, but really our whole life there is signs of Allah everywhere. There's so many instances where we're able to pick up on valuable lessons to teach. So linking to whatever is going on in your day-to-day life, trying to find ayats that link. So which ayats link right now to our current situation. And the other thing I want to say is when you're teaching, even if you're trying to teach your children, it always means so much more when we start with ourselves, when we ourselves love learning about and living the Quran ourselves first, and then come from it from like rather than starting trying to be their teachers and trying to teach it to them. When they watch us, for example, when my children watch me trying to Quran journal, there's sometimes they do it with me and sometimes they don't, but it's them seeing my relationship and my eagerness to try and connect with the Quran that I think speaks, even though maybe not in the moment, but I feel like it's seed planting. And then the other thing is the idea of incorporating the learning, memorization, or connection with the Quran with something you already love to do. So the ideas we've given are like kind of a bit artistic or writing style, but like you could do this in any other way. So for example, if you're a photographer and you love taking pictures, take pictures of different things, make a photo album and link those pictures to different ayats. If you're a really techie kind of person, make a website, make an app, create iMovies. If maybe your children like creating iMovies, posters, animations, using stop motion studio. If you're a poet, write poetry that matches. If you're a storyteller, making up stories, like anything that you're passionate about, anything that is something that you enjoy doing, trying to link your learning of Quran through that for ourselves and for our children, I think is really useful.
Yeah, so to add on to that, like anything that you like to do right now, if you're one who likes to cook, your cooking experience can also be connected to the Quran. For instance, the dua of Nabi Isa when he is asking for the Ma'idatam minas sama. Quran mentions some fruits and vegetables. The family who we are cooking for, the aspirations of certain morals we have for our children, etc. All these energies from the words of God go into our food or whatever hobby for that matter we're engaging in, and it makes it blessed, or like in my teacher's words, it sanctifies the experience. I think there were a few questions. First off, sorry, Tyranti, I think we were talking about memorization when you asked. I didn't realize you wanted to know how one starts as a beginner to make a journal. So Sabira, do you want to help with that question? The question is, I wanted to know how one starts as a beginner to make a journal. Is it like to pick an ayat from the start?
You could start that way. That's how I started. I started with one ayat. You could choose a theme. You could choose a passage. Any way. I think a lot of people at the beginning shared their favorite ayats. So if you have a favorite ayat, that would be something that you could start with. If there's something that an ayat that you've been reading lately that feels helps you to deal with the situation in today's time, trying to link to those ayats. I mean, there's so many different ways to be able to do this. I was just thinking today of one idea of having like a page on COVID-19 and all the different ayats that help me, settle my heart in this time and think about what are the lessons that I need to be learning? So even it could just be a collection of ayat. There's so many different ways that you can go about journaling, and there's no one way. So if you'd like to choose one ayat, pick something that speaks to you, or one of your favorite ayats. I would suggest that.
Okay. Another question is that can you please emphasize how to teach middle school and high school attending teens? Any suggestions as to how to learn Quranic Arabic? So there's courses that are offered online, or depends which part of the world you're in. There are classes that are offered. The madrasas try to cover Quranic Arabic. There's books. There's one resource, I think, through the Mafahim Quran or something. We can try and look it up for you. How to teach middle school and high school. If you want to have them build a relationship with the Quran. So a lot of these ideas that we've shared today, it's like when you bring the Quran alive and in a fun, a receptive way in your homes, makes it interesting for older children as well. Another thing is that stories from the Quran, like when we discuss different stories and we try to link it to our personal lives, right? We take lessons from the lives, from the stories in the Quran, and then we try to link it to our personal lives. That is also helpful because the teenagers are able to relate to it. Taking certain current events and linking it to some verses of the Quran and seeing what the message. I mean, with this whole like COVID-19, currently we're going through a course covering the passage, my favorite passage, like I said, the story of the people of the garden, and how the father leaves behind a legacy for the children, but the children decide not to follow, and how they're being miserly and selfish, and so what we try to do in these types of classes is we try to ask questions, and we try to bring it to our own lives and see how we can relate to the situation. And I think when Quran is presented in that way, that's one of the first steps to get them engaged. Then automatically they will want to learn more about the Quran. I hope that answers your question. I know we're running out of time. So what would you do for that experiment? Sorry, maybe I did not explain that experiment. So the idea was to understand the concept of a strong versus weak faith. So we were talking about what are the qualities of a person whose faith is strong, right? Versus a quality of a person whose faith is weak. So the green tea bag basically was representing one that was weak, such that when it's put in hot water, like in a difficult circumstance, you will not see the color of it coming out, right? Versus like the proper Tetli tea bag is like strong, and it's equipped with so much more strength that even when it's dunked into a difficult situation, you will see that strength shows up. I hope that answers your question. Please share some more examples. So again, there's resources that hopefully we'll be able to share with you. And let's move on, I guess, to one of the last things that we wanted to talk about, and then we'll go through some of the links. Okay. So cross-referencing. Now, cross-referencing from one verse to another, or basically searching up an ayah of the Quran, is now very easy through some online websites. And I saw some people were giving their suggestions as well as we went along, so really appreciate it. Sorry if we were not able to respond to that. So some great resources were coming up. I hope you guys were following. Islamicity.org is a popular one, which I personally like to use, where you can even input an Arabic word transliterated, like you can see in the picture, and it will pull up all the verses in the Quran with that word. So it's not necessary for you to know certain verses of the Quran to be able to make connections and bring it alive in your home. I mean, it's great, right? But you have to start somewhere. So this tool helps you to search up a verse by topic, translation, or the word itself, and it's known as the phonetic search. When you visit this website, you have options by topic, by word, by translation, I believe, and by phonetic search. So you can just put in the transliteration, and you will get verses. So, say for example, you want to make a connection. You want to look for a verse of the Quran that's talking about a certain, a topic that you're interested in. You can try using these tools to search up verses of the Quran. Is there anything else, Sabra, you want to add to this one?
No, I think people have shared some different ideas too.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay. All right, so we'll go over, we just thought we'll share, I mean, there's so many links out there, but we've just put some of them that we thought might be useful. So the first one is islamicity.org. I talked about it. Corpus Quran is another one that's similar to islamicity.org. You can either do a screenshot right now, or if you want a clickable link, these slides and the recording will be posted on the Ali website, inshallah. The third link is about the Quran appreciation. So some of you might be aware that the Academy offers Quran appreciation courses throughout the school year to children ages 7 to 16. This course offers learning the Quran in some of the fun and exciting ways that we discussed, and much more. When it's usually held on site, except right now. The students usually will work towards a final project. So they will create a board game, for example, or a bulletin board, or a video or something, all linking to. Recently, we had a whole mock rally that the students came up with when we were talking about Prophet Musa and Fir'aun, and standing up to a tyrant, and a lot was going on about Kashmir at that time. So the students actually put up an entire mock rally. So a lot of appreciating the messages from the Quran and bringing it alive into our lives goes on in these classes. It's currently taking place here in Toronto, I believe Vancouver, and some cities in the US and UK. All the material that is taught is available on this site that we've put up here. And to be able to start it up in any city, you can contact us for further information. Furthermore, the Academy's Facebook page, which is the next link I have up there, has weekly updates providing a summary of the classes taught, if you want to check them out. Sabra, you want to go over the other links?
So we've put up Q Fatima's website here. She's got a section on Quran journaling. It's slightly a different style, but it's worth checking out. We've also put up Al-Islam's Quran there, just so an online version of Quran with translation and commentary that's Shia-based. Al-Islam also has the full set of the enlightening commentary into the Quran. The link there is for volume 1, but there's many volumes. You can find very in-depth commentary for all the surahs by going to their website. If you're trying to link to different hadiths in your Quran journaling in the separate book that I was talking about, Academy of Islam has a database of hadiths. So searching by a keyword through that will pull up tons of different hadiths for you. And the last link there is the one where you can access the Quran tabs, you can access Quran cards, and I think there's some other resources on that page also. Before we move on to questions, I just wanted to say, because I know we're running out of time, I hope you're all able to stay for a few more minutes. But I mean, we've given a lot of different ideas today, and for some of you, it might feel overwhelming. I just want to say if like a lot of this is new to you, it will be hard to take on so much to decide to do all at once. So it's really important to try and think about what idea do you want to start with, and trying to make that intention of starting today, starting tonight. Like sometimes we listen to things, we get really excited, and then within a week we listen to 100 other different things, and the ideas go, and we get lost in our everyday lives. So like commit to something that you want to do. Pick one or two ideas that you really are looking forward to starting with. And I really like the idea of working alongside somebody else, and making yourself accountable with somebody else. Message a friend that you see who's also attended today's seminar, and ask them to be your accountability partner, and commit to each other something that you're planning to do, and that you're going to check in with each other in a week's time, for example, to see that you followed through. Yeah, before you sleep tonight, I hope you try and make that intention. And I think now we're going to open up for questions if there's anything else. Oh, wow.
Sorry, there are a few questions. The tab pictures, they're available on this last link, right, Sabira? Interactive Quran Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this will give you the files that you need. Oh, wow, Rehana, you stayed up till 3 a.m. in the UK. What can you say about that, Sabira? I'm touched.
God bless you.
Okay, I'm trying to see. There's questions. Are there any groups being started for those who want to begin Quran journaling in Shahr Ramadan? I would love to be a part of a group where we can all share our ideas. Well, something to think about. And if there's something, then we will keep you posted, inshallah. I guess if you guys are guys have your emails with the Academy and you're receiving their Quranic reflections every Friday, then you will receive other information as well, inshallah. Can kids register any time for Quran appreciation classes? If you're asking about Toronto, so basically it's term by term, right? We start in the fall, and then so it's nice to start at the beginning of obviously the term itself, so that they don't miss out, rather than starting maybe the third or fourth week. It's okay. We can try to have them catch up, but it's just easier. But if they've not attended the fall session, for example, they can still sign up for the winter session or the spring session. That's okay. Let's look at other questions. How can you come up with questions for reflection? So it's like you're looking at a verse of the Quran and you're trying to ask why, for example, why is it that Allah has used this term, or what is He trying to say in this verse, for example? If you want samples, again, if you go to you can contact us and we can give you some sample of questions for reflection, or if you go to the Quran appreciation link on the Academy's website, where the notes are posted for all the classes that are held, you will notice that for every week's set of verses. So if it's like 2 or 3 verses that are being covered that week, usually it'll start with questions for reflection, and you can see how it's done there. So those will probably be good samples for you. And yeah, so well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We hope this was helpful. We're happy to continue helping you journey through the Quran, so we have left our contacts here if you're interested to get in touch. Stay safe. Have a very blessed Mahi Ramadan with the Quran as your beautiful, decorated centerpiece as you attend this spiritual banquet as guests of Allah, inshallah. and keep us in your du'as, please. We're still around, right, Sabra, for a couple minutes if people have questions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thank you very much, ladies. Okay. Jazakallah. Thank you. The Quran appreciation classes, well, we just have our last session this Friday. I'm not sure if we will be having more sessions online, but if we do, then the information will be available on the Academy's website and on the Facebook page as well.
I was just going to say again, the slides and the recording will be up on Academy's website. So if you've missed anything, you'll be able to get a hold of it later.